Welcome to episode 029 of the Bit Beacon broadcast. It's still April 1st, 2024. Kodax is here.
Ravenheart.
And real quick before we jump into our usual segments, we just want to say there may have been some beeping sounds in the previous episode. We did our best to edit it out as much as we possibly could.
And episodes prior to that.
Yeah, there were a few episodes recently that were also having that as well. But it was like persistent through all of the last episode entirely. But we think we found the solution. We just spent like 30 minutes troubleshooting this. I think it was a faulty cable in our microphone. So hopefully this episode is beeping free. Apologies again. But we're going to jump into what have we been buying and playing. Well, we're not going to talk so much about what we've been playing because we talked about that in the last episode. I did have a couple more purchases that I wanted to talk about, kind of Final Fantasy themed. So I got two things here that came in recently. First of all, I have the PS5 copy of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion.
Yep.
This was a remaster/remake.
It was on PSP originally.
Yes, of a PSP game set in the Final Fantasy VII universe.
It came out simultaneous with the movie Advent Children.
Okay,
yeah.
Appreciate that background info that Rick's got.
I'm here for it.
And the reason why I have the PS5 copy is because it has become notoriously rare.
Mm-hmm.
And last week, Canadian video game retailer Video Games Plus, who I've shouted out before for somehow getting new stock of hard to find and out of print games, they, for a very brief, like 5-minute window, had stock of the PS5 version of Crisis Core, and I think they sold it for like $30 US, and it's going for like $100.
Wow!
Sealed on the aftermarket.
Wow!
And I know I had mentioned previously what happened to the PS5 version of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Mm-hmm.
Has gotten insanely rare, like people paying $200 for like just the disc.
That's crazy.
And so I didn't want this game to be the next one to escape me.
Yeah.
So I actually had the PS4 copy of this game, which came with a free PS5 upgrade.
Right.
But it wasn't the native PS5 version.
Right.
And for whatever reason, there's plenty of stock of the PS4 version of this game.
Mm-hmm.
But Square Enix seemingly printed very little of the PS5 version. Seems to be a recurring thing with them.
Not sure why, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe when it came out... Well, I mean, there's 100 million plus PS4s on the market. That's true,
yeah.
And
if you
there's,
consider,
30-some million
the install base
PS5s
is probably
or something.
that ratio.
Yeah. So that's probably how they're looking at it. So yeah, I got the PS5 copy of that for a very good price. And... then I recently received the Art of Final Fantasy 16.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a heavy tome of all the concept artwork and backgrounds and just all the little... I mean, you can see here, there's concept artwork, and then there's like all the graphics that would have gone on like the little posts in the town for like the inn and the bar and things like that.
Yeah. The hand-drawn textures and stuff. Maybe not hand-drawn, but... And
I gotta say, it's like a beautiful, beautiful looking cover. Yeah. It's got some of the key artwork from the game. I believe this is the same key art that we got on our posters.
Oh, yeah.
From the launch event. The pre-launch event.
Pre-launch,
in Los Angeles. And I really appreciate that the Art of Final Fantasy text is...
like holographic.
Holographic, yeah. That's cool.
Nice.
And Amazon, I'm always leery of buying books from Amazon. In my experience, they don't protect the package very well. Like, they usually just throw it in a box or one of those not a manila envelope, but those bubble mailers.
Yeah, right.
And it just comes, like, heavily dented. There are a couple little dents in the corner on this, but nothing too horrific. But I was totally prepared to return it if it was because this retails for $39.99.
Yeah.
But Amazon was selling it for like $23
Wow.
before it even like came out. So I was like, well, that's almost 50% off. I'm gonna pick it up. I love this game. One thing that's disappointing to me though is that there's this big expansion coming out for Final Fantasy 16 like next month.
Right.
And of course, none of that concept stuff is going to be in this.
Right.
So this book is effectively incomplete.
Yeah. And
something
I don't
tells
know why they do that.
I don't know. It's like, could you have just waited? You knew you were going to make DLC. Did you have to? I mean, my guess is they're going to milk another art book, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Which I guess I'm not totally opposed to.
Better than nothing.
It would have been nice to have the whole thing collected.
It reminds me of when, Nintendo released their compilation disc for Scarlet and Violet before the last DLC.
Right, the last DLC was even out. Speaking of which, side note, there is a version of the DLC complete version of Scarlet and Violet in Japan.
Yeah.
That now has been revised to include every single patch ever.
Wow.
So you can find that complete version in Japan apparently now. No one has spotted it being available in the US. And unfortunately, there's nothing on the box to indicate that the cart has been revised. You literally have to pull the cart.
It's just a new version of the same release, like same
so
title.
Basically, this is where things get really kind of messed up. So as Nintendo prints a game on launch day, right?
Yeah.
You're basically getting like an unpatched, version of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some advantages to that. All the glitches and things that you could possibly take advantage of are going to be present in that version of the game.
Right.
But as games get updates over a year or 2 or 3, like in the case of Animal Crossing, like you essentially have to download more and more data that's not on the cartridge and it's stored on your Switch.
Right.
Well, later versions of like Animal Crossing for Switch, for example, have all the patches on the cartridge.
Right.
And so there might actually be like 4 different revisions of the Animal Crossing cartridge that have different patches on it just based on when Nintendo printed the cartridges. Yeah.
So you gotta if you're a crazy hardcore collector, you go for batches like that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, for me, I would want the first one
and the last
and the very last one.
But there's no way to tell.
And you literally have to open it and look at the cartridge on the back. There's some numbers, and it will indicate like what revision it is of that particular game.
Gotcha.
And so the supposedly complete on cart Scarlet and Violet releases that they put out that have the DLC unlocked on them, that initially were missing the second DLC, are now being printed in Japan with the second DLC included on the cartridge. So you're actually getting everything.
Right.
And even like a patch that came out after the second DLC came out, like bug fix patch, is included on that. So yeah, there's a part of me that's like, but how do you even begin to start tracking that down?
Right, yeah.
It's like
you would have to buy a bunch and check.
Yeah, or like maybe eBay pictures you could see.
Yeah.
The revision.
That's true,
Yeah, but
eBay might actually be your best bet.
But I mean, a lot of times you might have to send a message to the seller like, "Hey, can you send me a picture of the back of the cartridge?" And like,
some
are
weird
they
question.
gonna want to do that? Because they don't care. They don't understand what you're talking about. So yeah, that's a whole conundrum with collecting physically for Switch.
Right. And any console. There are other examples.
But it's like, I mean, the revisions go all the way back to NES.
Right.
Yeah. Even further, I'm sure.
I might have mentioned this in the past, but there's one Tiger Woods PGA Tour game.
Oh yeah,
on PS1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has files that were not intended for release.
Right.
Embedded that
illicit.
They got removed.
Explicit files, I should say.
Explicit, yeah.
How did we get off on that topic?
We were talking about revisions.
Yeah, well, why did we start talking about revisions?
Oh, because I likened it to that art book coming
exactly.
up.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I've picked up lately. You don't have anything New one.
I mean, I love the art. I am
Yeah.
jealous that you have that and I don't.
It's reasonably priced.
I'd love to have that for my own, like...
Yeah.
I need to start paying more attention to art books and stuff like that.
You know, I used to get a lot, and then I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
These are they're heavy, and they take up a lot of space.
To collect them is demanding, extremely.
Yeah, and some of them are expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Like, especially if they're not coming from, like, a lot of art books get published by, like, very boutique publishers now.
Yeah.
And so they don't get, like, a normal, like, Amazon release.
A huge number.
So, like, you can only buy it from this, like, boutique website, you know?
Right.
So you end up paying, like, $80 for an art book, and it's like...
Right.
So, yeah, I'm pretty picky and choosy about what art books I get. It has to be for something, like, I truly love. I think prior to this, the last one I got was the Akira Toriyama Dragon Quest art book that I got last year.
Yeah, right.
And then prior to that, it had been quite some time, aside from the art books that are, like, included with collector's editions.
Those aren't this.
Yeah. I think maybe it might have been, like, the Japanese Gravity Rush art book.
Oh, right.
Which I recently was looking up the value of it. It has, like, massively skyrocketed, which is kind of crazy because I guess they just stopped printing it because, you know, the series didn't really catch off and Sony kind of buried it.
Yeah.
Along with the death of Japan Studio.
But, I mean, for my own development and character design purposes, I really should be collecting
these
those.
Are like reference.
Yeah. Basically,
material,
So, yeah. Awesome finds.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I've been up to a few events this past weekend.
Right.
I got home from Denver Wednesday night, went to work for one day, and then I jumped straight over to WonderCon on Friday.
Yeah, you've been busy.
Yes. And then Saturday I was at a different event, and then Sunday I went back to WonderCon. So I'll talk about WonderCon real quick. Not a lot going on game-wise this year. Honestly, very little. In fact, there was only one panel that was, like, explicitly related to video games that I could find. And so I made sure to go. And it was...
I was just going to ask a question.
Yeah.
Was Nintendo on the show floor at all?
No.
Or nobody?
No game publishers on the show floor.
Wow. Okay.
WonderCon, in that regard, is Capcom doesn't go anymore. Bandai Namco doesn't go anymore. Nintendo doesn't go anymore.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah, because that was I loved going to WonderCon because those three were, like, there every year.
Sega was there too, if I remember right.
Sega may have been there at one point. You know, it used to be that WonderCon is run by the same people who run San Diego Comic-Con, which is basically maybe the most sought after, like, pop culture convention to get into.
Right.
And for a while, WonderCon was basically, like, kind of a lighter version. Like, a lot of the big players would still show up for WonderCon because they had that relationship with San Diego Comic-Con. But post-pandemic, and even a little bit before the pandemic, like, some of that was kind of going away. I think maybe some of the developers were just kind of not really seeing it as that strategic of a play. Like, if they don't really have anything to announce, like, I mean, they could have, Nintendo could have been there with a Princess Peach Showtime booth.
Right.
You know?
I remember Nintendo being there with Splatoon demos that had already been out for, like, a couple months.
There were some times where they would not really have much to show.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, you're showcasing, like, old stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember there was one year when Kid Icarus Uprising came out. They were giving out all the booster packs with the AR cards in them.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then Capcom used to really bring it was always, like, they would bring, like, the producers and the directors of Monster Hunter games out there.
That's right.
It was, like, a really good time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's none of that anymore.
Yeah.
So WonderCon is, like, really tamed down.
Yeah. There doesn't sound like there's any reason for either of us to be there, like, all 3 days.
Yeah, I didn't feel it. This was the first year where I didn't show. Like, if I attended, I was always there all 3 days, at least for some part of the day. But, like, I just didn't really feel the need to go Saturday. And I did have something else going on that day as well.
Right.
So, yeah, I didn't feel motivated. I mean, I was there somewhat for work purposes.
Yeah.
Because there's a big like book publishing side of things with a lot of like indie and some small press publishers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always looking for authors and stuff to come visit the library that I work at.
Yeah.
But the one panel that I did go to was a panel hosted by That Game Company.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't know who That Game Company is, or you maybe haven't thought about them in a while,
I can give you their whole gameography right now.
You're probably going to be missing one game, but sure, give me their gameography.
Their first game was Flower, and then they released a game called Flow,
mm-hmm.
and then they released
their magnum opus.
Journey. And
since then, so after Journey, they went real quiet.
Right. I feel like I'm missing one though. Still.
No, it's those three games, and then in 2019 they launched a game on mobile called Sky.
Oh, okay.
It has a visual identity similar to Journey, but it is a live service MMO-ish kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
And since it launched on mobile in 2019, sometime during the pandemic when, or when things were starting to kind of reopen, maybe 2021 or 2022, they launched on Switch and PS4.
Yeah, okay.
And I have played a little bit of Sky, but I didn't get like super heavily into it. But after the panel, I do kind of think I might want to revisit it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is like a live service, persistent online kind of experience where you have like shared spaces where you see other players doing stuff. But it does retain that visual identity of something like Journey, and it is very simplistic. There's no like players typing to each other and stuff like that.
So, for the audience, That Game Company is known for their mechanical identity too. Mm-hmm. They're very recognizable if you play any of their games, because it is usually very simplistic controls.
Yeah.
Maybe there's one action button and then everything else is the analog stick. And it's sort of puzzle adventure type.
Yeah.
Very minimalistic UI.
Oh yeah, almost no UI.
Yeah. Basically. And so they're known for that kind of mechanical identity as well as their visual art style.
Yeah.
Is Sky like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels very similar of like an evolution of Journey, but in like a multiplayer-esque sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
But also like they have like seasonal events and things like that.
Gotcha.
You may remember at the Game Awards last year, Genova Chen, the founder of That Game Company, came out on stage and announced like the new season or something like that of Sky.
Genova Chen was actually one of the chair people for Indiecade for a long time. I don't know if she still might be. Oh, sorry.
But he wasn't at the panel, unfortunately. I brought my PS3 copy of Journey on the off chance that he would be there, because after they made Journey, the studio kind of fell apart, which is crazy to think about, because Journey was this massive critical and commercial success story. Like that game was like a $12.99 like PS3.
It got a physical release too.
It did, bundled with Flow and Flower, all three on a single disc.
I think it was Flower that put them in it was Flow that. I think that was like their first game that people actually like noticed them. Yeah,
that was like where you were like the wind.
Right.
Yeah. Which is a crazy concept. But yeah, literally their games are very simple. Like a Journey, for example, you could jump, you could move the character around in the environment, and you had one button that was effectively like a communication.
Yeah.
Like a hey over here kind of thing.
Right.
And should I talk about the kind of twist of Journey?
Don't spoil it.
Okay, if you've never played Journey, find the game on Steam, on PS4, on PS3. It's a 2-hour experience, probably.
Maybe a little more, but
2 to 3 hours. And if you're really lucky, you'll share this experience in a way you never expected.
Yeah, it depends on other people playing.
Yeah, at the same time.
At the same time you're playing, and I don't know how many people are playing Journey right now, but it is their best game.
Yeah, I mean and then there's this reveal at the end of the game that you just.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain without spoiling it, so I won't. It's
hard to explain at all. It's pretty abstract, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, and then it's just it's super moving, the music. It's like an emotional journey, but like there's no word ever spoken.
Yeah.
It's just all conveyed through just like the visual journey of this small adventure you go on.
Right. And compared to Flower and Flow, it's like actually pretty epic and like long form.
Yeah.
So that's why we call it their magnum opus.
Yeah. But so they took the idea, let me talk about the panel. So the panel was about, they have an art book coming out for Sky.
Okay.
And speaking of expensive art books.
Yeah,
it's only released through their online store, and it's $125.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I mean, it does include a lot of cool extras and stuff that they throw in along with the art book, and it's like got this like hardcover sleeve that it comes out of.
Mm-hmm.
But $125, it's kind of a big sell.
Yeah.
That's a big ask, I think, of your players. But I'm sure people who are really into Sky will grab it.
Right.
But basically, it was all the artists, or a bunch of the main artists that were there.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the guys, whose name is escaping me right now, he worked for Square USA, which was their Honolulu studio.
Before they merged with Enix?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is where they developed Final Fantasy IX.
Oh, boy.
This is where they made the movie Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
Mm-hmm.
And
so Sakaguchi would have been there because he lives in Hawaii.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was Sakaguchi. They basically made a studio for Sakaguchi because he wanted to live in Hawaii.
He directed Spirits Within, too.
Yes. And he also worked on Parasite Eve as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So this guy and he also worked on like the first 3 God of War games.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cecil Kim, that's his name.
Okay.
Cecil Kim.
Yeah.
Dude has a storied career. He's only been with that game company for like the last, I think he said like 7 years or something like that.
It's crazy that they have a veteran like that because they started out during the indie boom.
Yeah.
You know, pretty much coming up with like Phil Fish with Fez and
So yeah, after Journey finished, the studio basically fell apart.
Yeah.
Genova Chen like kind of shut down that game company.
Yeah. Like
put it in hiatus while I guess he started thinking about what was next, and then he basically had to like hire a new team around him.
Okay.
And so the panel itself was about like the kind of iterations that Sky went through,
mm-hmm.
and the kind of ideas for it, and then eventually settling on making a live game.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked a lot about all the benefits of having a live game, and just how it's like such a unique creative experience for them.
Yeah.
And that like it creates this like connection with the players that you don't have in like a game that you just like ship.
Right.
And then like never touch again.
Okay, when it's a team of artists, like closely knit artists like that game company would be,
mm-hmm.
a live service, I can totally see that. When it's a live service coming from a mega corporation where no one's really creative, no artist with a brush has having like a creative direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's all kind of coming from an art director who's not really making assets.
Right.
That is different.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah, I noticed this trend of them talking about the live service component quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me think about a question that I eventually asked them at the end of the panel when they were taking audience questions.
Mm-hmm.
But before I get there, they had like a screen that was displaying some of the concept art seen in the book.
Yeah. And
it showed like some really cool ideas that they like scrapped for the game. Like originally it was going to have more of like this fantasy, you know, merging with like kind of modern like city stuff, like street lamps and things like that. Like, and so it kind of had this cool, almost like dystopian kind of vibe to it, you know, where like just these things, like there's no more humans, but there's all these sky people everywhere. But like they just talked about how they went through like more than 7 different like versions of the game before they finally settled on what they ended up shipping.
Yeah.
But anyways, like I said, oh, and by the way, I recorded, like, I missed the first few minutes of the panel in terms of my recording of it.
Yeah.
But I did record basically the whole panel, and I think I'm going to be uploading it to the BitBeacon YouTube channel.
Is it film or audio that you got?
Film.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, like, I had a really good seat to get, like, the whole panel for the whole duration with no one sitting in front of me or anything. Nice. If I find that someone else uploaded it or they uploaded it themselves, I won't bother. But well, it still might be worth bothering.
Yeah, I would,
because maybe they take it down someday or something like that.
Yeah, we can. It's preservation.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to record my question, and yeah.
Okay, what was your question?
Okay, so my question was basically, you guys are talking about all the great benefits of a live service game, but one day your game will go away because of the nature of it being a live service game.
Nice. Good question.
So I asked them, like, as artists, do you guys, like, has that thought ever occurred to you, or does it concern you? Or like, and I was trying to make the point, like, you know, like your game deserves to be like preserved and playable for future generations. And that's what I said.
Right.
I was like, people should be able to, like, I would think you would want people to play it for a long time. And so the community manager at first, who was moderating their panel,
shut it down.
Not exactly. Not exactly.
I'm joking.
He kind of did, where he was like, oh no, we don't think about that, you know, like, and then he was like, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand that there's like a big conversation happening around like preservation and like making sure like things are accessible in the future. And he's like, I totally get that. I know that that's an important conversation happening. But he's like, I can tell you, you know, like, there's no talk about the end of Sky.
Okay, yeah.
And so that kind of told me that, like, well,
you guys should be thinking about that.
Yeah, like, they're not thinking about it. Why aren't you thinking about it?
Right.
So then Cecil Kim,
the artist,
the lead artist for Sky, or the art director for Sky, I think he is, and the one who has a huge history in gaming.
So if real quick, if anybody should be concerned, I think it should be the art director.
Right. Okay, so keep in mind they have an art book that they're putting out, so they could say, I'm surprised none of them went like, oh, well, we're putting out the art book. There's our art preserved.
That's true.
But he chimed in and kind of spoke about how in the studio's mind, they expect Sky to be around 600 years from now. And that's like a quote that he said right there.
Wow.
That, like, that's their ambition. Like, that's how they feel the game lives on, is by it never going away, essentially. That it just continues in perpetuity.
Right.
Perpetuity, excuse me.
Right.
Perpetuity.
These big words.
These big words when you've been talking for 3 hours straight.
Yeah. Okay, so
again, that told me, and he's like, we don't think about that. We think about Sky being around 600 years from now.
Still online. Yeah,
exactly. And now, and you know, like, I respect that, like, that's like, they're not worried about it, but like, I don't know. I hope that maybe, because another part of my question was like, is there anything being done in the background to make sure that it's like, like, are you guys pre-planning for that day?
Right.
Is also like part of my question. And it basically sounded like, no, we're not.
And we're not.
We don't think about it.
Yeah, we're not even considering it'll come.
Because it's going to be around forever.
Right.
And so I was understanding, but at the same time, I'm just like, well, that's a little short-sighted.
Yeah. I'm going to give my take on their answer, but okay. I'll wait till you...
And so they let me ask, it kind of went back to the community director, the community manager, and he kind of pointed back to me, and I was like, I have just a brief follow-up, and he's like, sure. And so I asked, have you guys ever considered putting out any kind of physical release of your game?
And I forgot to ask you, what platform is it on?
It started out on mobile, then it came to Switch and PS4.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it is on console
Okay.
right now, playable on PS5 as well. But there's no like native PS5 version, I don't think.
Okay.
And it's free to play as well. There is no, so it does have like a monetization scheme.
Of course,
to it.
yeah, it's a live service.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, that like kind of I'll get back to that in a second. Let me finish this thought. So I asked them about the physical copy of the game, and the community manager was like, well, there's no plans right now. We see all the cool things, like places like Fangamer are putting together these like nice collector's editions and things like that. And he's like, we see that, we think about that. And, he's like, right now we can't, like, there's no announcement or any kind of plans that they could publicly talk about, at least.
Right.
But it did make me hope that maybe, I don't know, maybe that little seed I plant next year, I see a Sky physical edition, Yeah,
that'd be nice.
Yeah.
It'd be preferable.
Because I mentioned, like, you guys are all here.
Right.
And there's nothing for us to, like, have you sign.
Yeah.
Like, there's no game
okay,
for you
you
to
brought
sign.
up one of our key points in our argument is that you can't autograph a digital file.
Yeah.
And so, maybe that got him thinking. It's crazy how different, like, developers think from us. Like, when you start really considering the differences in their mindset.
Yeah.
From, like, people like us who play the games, the consumers.
Like, that was kind of crazy to me. That, like, this thought had never even occurred to them.
Right.
Like, and I thought that was kind of, like, I really thought it was short-sighted.
It is. Well, it's... Okay, so what the guy said was, this game's going to be around forever. That's our mindset.
That's how we preserve it.
That's our attitude.
Yeah.
And that's an important attitude to have for its side effects. Because if you firmly believe that in your heart of hearts, you're going to be pouring your entire soul into this development. Now, from a realistic standpoint, we know that that's delusional. You're not, like, sorry, I'm being real. Your game's not going to be online for 600 years. Long after you're gone. That's, like, maybe it is, but at some point, it's not going to be online anymore.
Right.
It might be 6,000 years in the future.
Right.
But at some point, it's going to go away.
And if you think about games, I feel like all games are worth preserving.
Yes.
But if you want to think about games that are really, really worth preserving...
Right. Yeah.
That game company's games...
It's developers like That Game Company, developers like Vanillaware, developers like... what's another example?
Square Enix.
Yeah. Well, that's a publisher, but yeah.
Well, they make games too.
That's true, yeah.
But yeah, like... I mean, like, these are games that no matter when someone plays Journey, that will be an emotional experience.
Oh, yes.
6,000. It
doesn't matter how old the game is.
60,000 years from now.
Yes. It doesn't matter how old the game is. That's, going to have the same impact.
Yeah.
Emotionally.
Like, you don't need to know anything about current events.
Right.
You don't need to, like, be in a certain mindset. You just need to open yourself to the game.
Right. It's a very timeless experience.
Yeah. And visually, too.
Right. And I think that developers and engineers and artists, I guess, maybe a little less on the artist side, but developers and engineers are just naturally a forward-thinking bunch. It just seems to be the prevalent, like, just mindset philosophy that these people have.
Well, maybe I was talking to the wrong people.
That's true. Maybe,
I wasn't talking to the actual, like...
Well, you did address the artists, and it seems like the community manager, whoever, kind of took, like...
I mean, he did, but then Cecil Kim went into, like, a 5-minute, like, reply to me, too.
Yeah, that's good.
But, and they did talk about how even though they're artists... I guess That Game Company encourages everyone to be a game designer too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's kind of, again, plays into what we've seen from them.
Right. Like, I guess, like, even though your role is, like, artist, that doesn't mean you can't contribute to games, that you can't have ideas, that you can't share.
Design ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just goes to speak volumes to, like, what a special place That Game Company seems to be.
Right. It's because they've managed to remain small and be successful.
Yeah.
I feel like if they got big, that would change.
Well, I think they're bigger now than they've ever been.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, they're running a persistent online game at this point.
Right.
Um,
They're definitely squarely AA, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, let's talk about... So, the fact that that game company has a live service game kind of hurts me.
Yeah.
Like, to know that they have,
Look, I can't dismiss what I'm going to consider to be a genre just because I have grievances with other games and stuff. I think it's a medium that can be used right.
I mean, they basically took Journey with Sky and they turned it into a pseudo MMO-y kind of shared world thing.
Right.
And then, of course, you know, instead of just selling something to people, they get money from them regularly.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's inherently evil or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I feel it's like...
It's not what you would prefer to see.
From that game company specifically. Yeah. Like, it just kind of hurts me a little. But on the other side of that coin, if that game company is thriving... Yeah. Then, like, that makes me happy, too. Right. It's like, I don't... Like, after Journey came out and that game company kind of, like, went away. Mm-hmm. And it was like, what the heck? Yeah. Like, they just had this, like, phenomenal, groundbreaking, emotional game release, and now they've just kind of vanished. Yeah. I mean, that made me worry, like... I guess maybe you can't sell a game for $12.99, you know? And sustain, like, a company.
So the leadership at that game company originally, I believe it was 3 people. I know one of them was a female.
Yes, you're right.
And
they left, and Genova is like the only one.
Right.
The only key member that's like still there, from my understanding.
I don't remember where I got this info, but I know I heard it that the sentiment was basically like, I'm done with this. I'm kind of sick of doing this. I want to move on to bigger things. Okay. And I think that was like unanimous between the 3 of them. Okay. I think Genova stayed behind to still, because, you know, for whatever reason. Right. But yeah, I think that was kind of where they're a forward-thinking bunch, and I've always gotten that from them, and that just lends itself to the answer you got, in my opinion, from the question you asked. Yeah. But it's sad, you know, that they're not thinking the way we're thinking. Yeah. It's also sad to see a great, you know, because anything from them is great. It'd be a live service game, like you said.
Yeah. I do have one tidbit that Cecil, I don't know if he mistakenly said something, but like, and I didn't hear like anybody really like gasp or anything. Yeah. But like, I heard it. He basically announced that they're working on another game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've seen nothing online about that game company working on a new game. But he basically said, we're working on this and one other title at some point when he was talking. Okay. And I was like,
okay.
Okay.
Good to know. I mean, from his standpoint, maybe he just expects people to expect that as a game company, they're working on games, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, it kind of makes me hopeful that maybe this other game won't
It's confirmation that they're not just going to go away. Again.
Yeah, well, they're not just making Sky. Well, Sky is still getting updated. Like you said, they are just going to continue to update it. But, I mean, I feel that eventually players will fall off. You know, and more players will fall off. Right. I mean, sure, you have games like RuneScape and EverQuest that are still online 30 years later, you know.
It's a special kind of person playing those games.
Yeah, it is,
But, like...
I mean, and they're a dying breed.
Yeah.
You know, 20 years from now, some of them ain't going to be able to play games anymore.
Right. A lot of them, I think, are nostalgia obsessed and stuff too.
And there's people who just like to play old games.
Yeah,
you know, they don't like modern games, and I don't necessarily blame them.
Right. I get what you're saying, but so that's cool to hear that.
Got an exclusive here on the Bit Beacon, and anybody else who was at WonderCon.
So that's confirmation for me that that game company is A, not going to go away again. Yeah. And B, not just banking on Sky, and Sky is their future.
Or maybe Sky is going to bankroll
this other yeah,
like something else that is maybe more like traditional, maybe
right.
a one purchase only kind of game, you know?
That'd be nice. I don't see them as being like nostalgic for like traditional ways of doing things, but
Yeah, but maybe it won't be. Maybe it at least won't be like a live service game.
right.
You know, maybe it would be some kind of, you know, like they have Sky, which is this like very like shared thing. Maybe that drives them to want to make something that's very isolated.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
there's all kinds of things you can allow or just like dream about.
Yeah,
just based on the one statement of we're working on something else.
Right. So you went to another event.
Yes, on Saturday, the day after that game company panel, I went to Honkai Star Rail's this is in quotes, one night in Penacony event. So we talked about this in the not last episode, but the previous one before that.
Right.
So this is kind of like a themed party celebrating the first anniversary of the game, as well as kind of the new area or the new planet featured in the game,
right?
Which is called Penacony or Penacony. I'm not sure how you pronounce it completely, but if you look at the two root words, Penacony,
yeah,
I don't know. You can maybe draw some things there. I don't want to have spoilers for the new patch that just came out, but so with this party, it was held at the Cicada Club in downtown Los Angeles.
I've been there twice now that I think about it.
Oh, okay. It's pretty close to Pershing Square.
Yeah.
And it is a like straight up like Hollywood 1950s like club.
Restaurant type thing.
Yeah. Like it's multi-purpose how they have it set up.
Yeah.
Like I think there can be like it can be a dance hall, it can be a dining thing.
Yeah.
And
they do shows and stuff, like dance shows,
like
on
jazz
stage.
band, like I looked up like their schedule of events. They regularly have but like you like role play when you go basically.
Yeah.
Like or you go there and you dress up like you're in old Hollywood.
On a normal night, you go like 50s or 40s or whatever.
And so it's a perfect theme for the new region, Penacony, which is themed after old Hollywood, old Vegas style. So it just like, and I will say, this is one of the better events I've gone to in a long time. Like they went all out with the theming, all the employees of like not only Hoyoverse, but also like the restaurant too. They were all dressed appropriately. They even offered like props to you. Like when you checked in, like you could get a fedora, you could keep this stuff too. I mean, it's like Party City fedora, you know?
Okay.
But like they looked good for the moment, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, you know, all kinds of like, you know, fake pearl necklaces, and some people did come dressed appropriately. Some people came, you know, in their casual weeaboo t-shirts.
I don't expect those people to like have the resources or know how to put together a costume. Right.
I mean, yeah, and it was not everyone has a 1950s style outfit lying around or wants to go drop, you know, $100 to put one together. I did my best to look at least like I would blend in, you know, at the time. I didn't have like an authentic outfit, but I had like a nice coat that would have, you know, been there, a button-up shirt, you know, properly dressed up, had a nice like old-fashioned kind of hat on. But I would say it's about 50-50. And then you had like the professional cosplayers who were there too, who were like actually looking like the characters themselves. But, so the event itself, I got there at like 2. Check-in wasn't until 5:30. So I waited a long time, but I was, you know, around fellow Honkai Star Rail fans, so we all ended up just like hanging out and talking and just, you know, discussing the game.
This is the guy that shows up 2.5 hours early to parties.
Okay, well, let me explain my reasoning. There's no parking. You can only...
Well, it's Hollywood.
Well, yeah, it was downtown LA, not quite in Hollywood. But you can only valet parking was included with the price of your ticket.
Okay. But
my thinking was, well, if 300 tickets are sold and 300 people all show up an hour, 30 minutes before it starts, the line to get your car parked is going to take 2 hours probably.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'd rather just be there early. And I ended up being the 6th person in line.
Okay.
But again, like I said, I had a good time just chatting with the other players, and we all added each other in the game as like friends.
I gotcha.
And so it starts. So at 5:30 they let us check in, and here they gave us a gift bag, and inside the gift bag were a couple of cool things. So first, as Hoyoverse, they like to do these commemorative tickets.
I appreciate that a lot.
Like they have this theme across their events at their for their in real life gaming events where they give you a commemorative ticket, and this one is really, really nice. I'm gonna let Rick take a look at that.
That's holographic. It's got art of the 2 characters like falling from the sky into sort of like
that's Penacony.
Yeah, 1950s Hollywood, totally how it looks. It's got the ticket guy from the stub. The stub has.
His name is Clocky.
Oh yeah,
it's not Pom Pom.
Just for like context, in the game, you give tickets or you get tickets and use them to get characters.
Yeah,
and do
it's like their version of like.
So it's got like a double meaning to it.
Yeah,
in that you have a ticket for an event, and it's a prop from the game basically.
Yeah. Which is interesting though, because Genshin Impact also does the ticket thing.
That's cool.
Yeah. Even though they don't use tickets as their like pull currency.
Mm.
And on the back, it has a little holographic view of the Astral Express, which is the sort of
the train,
the train / spaceship that you travel on.
Yeah.
And then it says anniversary celebration 1 year on the back of the stub as well.
Cool.
And then there's this really nice like 1 year stamp.
Oh yeah.
On the thing as well. And so this event was like really exclusive. I explained in a previous episode how hard it was to get tickets. My girlfriend's ticket got canceled.
Yeah, that's right.
So a lot of people ended up disappointed. But thankfully I was able to go. So there's a commemorative ticket. The other thing...
I'm sure the event was more enjoyable because of it.
Yeah. I mean, it was like literally the hardcore fans only.
But it was probably like not shoulder to shoulder, and there were appropriate amount of people there.
Yes, it was not that packed.
Yeah.
Like it was, and I'll wait till I tell you about the inside experience. We're just at the gifts right now. Okay, so maybe the best thing they gave us though was this individually numbered commemorative coin celebrating the 1st year anniversary.
That is cool.
It's a little off center right now, but I can move it over.
Yeah.
So this was like the thing that I really, really wanted, because they had advertised it being at the event, but I wasn't sure if like everyone got one or if we had to buy it or if we had to like redeem it somehow or win it. But yes, my serial number on my box is 0767, and I confirmed that like other people have different numbers on their boxes.
Gotcha.
And so these coins are going to be available in English, Japanese, and Chinese, I believe.
Okay.
Because there's events in a couple English-speaking regions. This is the only event for the anniversary in the U.S.
Got it.
And they made it like really hard to get into and really exclusive. And it also seems to be, out of all the events they listed, the most like all out kind of episode, or not episode, sorry, event of the series that they're doing. Like the other ones are just going to be like at a park, and people can come all day or
way
something
more
like
low
that.
Key.
Yeah, and this was like a total themed event. And then one other thing they gave out after you got your goodie bag, they had a set of character cards that were laid out on the table of like all the various characters in the game, kind of similar to the ticket, where it's like this hard paper holographic piece here. And they had different characters, but I chose to go with the female protagonist of the series, or of the game, Stell.
So you only chose one?
You were only allowed to take one, and there must have been 20 that they had on the table, Okay, so let's switch to talking about the event itself.
Yeah.
So they led us into the event. Okay, I have to talk about one last thing before we talk about the event. They gave all of us an envelope before we walked inside the club. And inside this envelope, we got 5 of these fake bills. And so they call these clock credits, is what they called them. Clocky is kind of like this Mickey Mouse-esque character from Penacony.
Right.
And he even sounds exactly like Mickey
Really?
Mouse, too.
Wow.
It's pretty funny. Anyways, so they give us these clock credits, and they explain to us that you can win more clock credits by playing various card games on the second floor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a casino area where you can bet your clock credits to win big, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's only one thing you can redeem the clock credits on, but you need 50 of these bills.
Okay.
So, and of course, there's one other way to get clock credits. For every $10 you spend at the merchandise booth, you get one of these clock credits. So some people spent a lot of money because they were buying merch for friends and themselves and whatever.
So what did you redeem them on?
Okay, so there was another goodie bag that just had generic Honkai Star Rail like merchandise and stuff inside of them. So thankfully it wasn't like event exclusive stuff. All the event exclusive stuff was done at the very beginning of the event. So there was no concern about...
So you obviously didn't redeem...
No, I did not. I was not able to gather 50 clock credits. Even if I had spent the whole time doing the card games where you can win 1 clock credit, there wouldn't have been enough time to get 50. And the thought of like betting all my clock credits to try to win big on like roulette was like... Okay, well, then I'm just not going to have any of these at the end of the night. I was like, I'd rather at least have the clock credits.
Well, if you lose...
Okay, so by the time I had played all the card games, I had ended up with 13 clock credits. I actually got a couple more by going to some of the stage events.
Okay.
Where, like, they were, like making it rain.
Okay.
Yeah. At a couple points near the end of the show, they did that. And then there was also like a photo booth thing with the professional cosplayers where you could get like 2 clock credits for posting your photo on social media or something like that.
Okay.
But honestly, the merchandise that was inside the bag, because I went up and asked and they kind of let me look at it and I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to spend my night doing that.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather be watching the musical performances, the developer interview and stuff like that. That was at the panel or at the main stage. And so, okay, so we get inside finally. We've got our clock credits. We can't go upstairs quite immediately. So we're just kind of doing some of the stuff downstairs. And they have people walking around with like the free food on the platters all over the place.
Right.
And then there's like a drink station. Unfortunately, no alcohol. But they are serving like bottled Coke. Which is probably their equivalent of this like drink that's featured in Penacony called Soul Glad.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it was worth the $40 for sure, considering everything you got, the parking, as much. I mean, like, they just kept coming out with food for hours. You could just get as much food as you wanted to.
Yeah, right.
They were pretty generous with that. They didn't, like, you know, you go to a lot of events and they give you like a food voucher and like a drink voucher, and then you get one of each, unless you're an influencer, and then you can get like as much as you want or something.
This event is reminding me more of like some costume events that aren't gaming related that I've been to, like Edwardian Ball and Labyrinth of Jareth, also in Hollywood. Okay.
I wonder if maybe they had someone who ran those kinds of events, like maybe in charge of organizing it. I know a lot of the staff who was there on behalf of Hoyoverse doesn't actually work for Hoyoverse. They were just hired because they know they're like fans and they can... you know, probably bribe them with merchandise and stuff.
So when you went to the Genshin Impact concert, you complained about like some of the attendees and their kind of just general behavior. And
I didn't really see that with the Honkai Star Rail crowd.
Interesting.
Like most people, there were some influencers there, like big Honkai Star Rail YouTubers, like really big ones. Okay. Braxophone, he's one. I know he was there. So the main event, aside from the attractions and earning clocky credits and the food, and the theming was really done really right. They had a really beautiful stage with a massive screen with the key art for the event on it. But what they did have was, so there's an introduction from the MC of the program, who is the same voice actor who does the live streams whenever they have like new. They do these every 6 weeks. They do this like content announcement live stream for like the next big patch, and it's this little like owl, kind of like the owl from Fire Emblem Heroes, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And his name is Owlbert. He hasn't actually appeared in the game, but he does go in the live streams. Anyways, so he was the MC for the night, the voice actor of Owlbert, and he introduced. There's like 3 songs with lyrics that have appeared in Star Rail so far.
Okay.
Actually, one of them was just done for like a YouTube promotional video, but 2 of them are in game.
Okay.
And so they actually flew out like the voice actors for the songs.
The singers?
The singers, yeah, sorry, not the voice actors. And had them like perform their songs live for everyone. I got all of that recorded, all 3 performances. Then they did a panel with voice actors, which was pretty silly. You know, I love voice actors. I love the work they do. But there are some people who are so obsessed with the voice actors.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it's a whole like
community. I guess it's the same way like people are obsessed with celebrities.
Yeah.
But like voice actors are different because you can always find them at conventions. They're online streaming the games that they're in. There's kind of a parasocial relationship.
They're on Twitter a lot.
Yeah, it's something I'm not totally comfortable with because they're like trying to solicit donations and weird things online sometimes.
Some of them do that.
Yeah, and not all of them, but yeah, there's definitely some of them are very online and very involved with like the people who like their character.
Right.
I don't know. I kind of think that's a little suspect sometimes. There's been instances where voice actors have taken advantage of their fans in
some
ways.
I mean there's developers who have done the same.
Sure. We definitely know some. But again, not all voice actors.
Right.
So the voice actor thing was actually pretty funny. They had them like recite each other's lines, blah blah blah. Just for the sake of brevity, I'm going to move this along to the developer interview, which was live stream from, the developer zoomed in basically from China.
Okay.
Chang Yan An, I believe is his name.
What's his position?
He's the lead on Star Rail, basically.
Okay.
So he's like the game director of Star Rail.
Okay.
Which was pretty cool that they didn't just send like
director or designer?
They pitched him as lead designer of Star Rail, but I believe that's the same thing as director.
Okay.
Because when I saw him, they did a really big announcement stream for the 2.0 version of the game. Like instead of just doing like a little small stream, they had like these big beautiful sets made and they recorded it in China and then like not dubbed it but subtitled it and everything. And he was featured heavily in the program.
Gotcha.
And yeah, he seems to be like the guy in charge of Honkai Star Rail effectively.
Gotcha.
He's not the guy who runs the company. That's another guy, Da Wei. I will say the dev interview was kind of... Unfortunately, the guy asking the questions was the MC. So they were all very cookie cutter. Who's your favorite character?
Yeah, right.
And he's like, I love all the characters equally, you know?
Right. They're all like my children.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Right.
So it wasn't the most like enlightening developer interview.
Right.
That was maybe a little disappointing. But I liked how rudimentary the setup was. Like they literally had like a laptop on like a stool on the stage, and the MC guy had to sit on the ground and like stand in front of the laptop. And then like they kind of had it like aimed at the audience too. So anyways, I got like pictures of like the laptop and like the names that are listed up in the corners of I wanted all of that. Yeah. So I fully documented that. And then at the end, after the developer interview, they just tried to do this like crazy sweeping like shot with these like flying cameras on poles and stuff to like try to get the whole crowd and do this like 360 thing.
Right.
And so everyone was involved and they did like freaking 7 takes of it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious where that video is going to end up if they end up even using it. But that was around almost 10 at night when that finished up. Okay. And I think the venue was open for another 15 to 20 minutes, but I was like, I better go grab my car before everyone wants to go grab their car. So I ran out of there after that.
I know the that club is open pretty late usually.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, honestly, a great themed event. I loved how it was kind of very sort of in character, you know, and they just really went all out. And for $40, like, I don't even think we covered their costs to rent the venue.
Really?
Yeah. And, you know, it was crazy. They didn't even charge, like, the fee. You know how usually when you buy something on Eventbrite, there's, like, fees or something like that?
Right.
They didn't even charge the fees, which means they ate that cost
Yeah.
on behalf of...
Interesting.
Yeah, because I saw someone online saying that it costs to rent out the Cicada Club for a day. It's like $60-some thousand or something like that.
That's crazy.
And yeah, they would have needed the whole day because they had a lot to set up prior to like us coming in.
Right.
Anyways, really impressive event, immersive, and one of the better things I've been to in quite some time. Yeah. And the goodies were like just the cherry on top.
Sounds like you had a good time.
I did.
All right. So you got your Seraphim Weekly update. Yeah, I do. I might have to truncate it a little bit.
It's okay.
But okay. So if you remember my last one, I was working on the pause menu, still getting that modularized, and then breaking it down so that modularization is like progressive in, you know, that you have the pause menu itself. And then everything stemming off of the pause menu, you know, instantiates when necessary and only when necessary, as like an additional instantiation. So, still working on it, and really figuring out the options, like the actual like options within the pause menu, as well as the options menu, which is, you know, a derivative of the pause menu. It's the options menu is kind of this other beast that is going to be present in places where the pause menu isn't, like on the map screen, on the main menu, or maybe in the extras menu off the main menu.
Because normally you'd use the pause menu to access the options menu.
Right. When you're in the middle of a stage, yes.
Right.
Which you will.
But you're saying there's going to be like an on-screen button or something that can be triggered, sort of?
Well, no, that you can access the options menu while on the map screen.
Oh, okay. So you would just press start again, probably, right?
You'll go to the stage menu, because when you're on, you know, any stage selected and then you hit the confirm button, whatever platform you're playing it on, it brings up the stage menu, which is, you know, start, you know, begin stage, quit, or main menu, like quit back to the main menu, scores, and those are the scores for the stage as well as the leaderboard.
So wait, when you select a stage, you can go back to the main menu?
Or
wouldn't you just go back and just go back to the map screen?
Well, you're on the map screen.
But I assume when you hit, like when you select a stage and a menu pops up, right?
Yeah.
So
you can just, instead of starting the stage, go to main menu.
So are you saying the only way to access the main menu...
The main menu, like the title screen.
Is you have to first select a stage before you can go back to the title screen?
You can do it from any stage, so you can do it from whatever stage you're on.
But I mean, when I'm on the map screen in a game, right? Or if like usually you want to back out, you just like hit the back button, whatever that button might be.
Yeah, but that doesn't take you back to the title.
Okay.
You know? So
I just think I'm not trying to criticize it. I'm just trying to understand the logic of putting the back to the title screen option in the stage menu.
Yeah, so if you think about it, right, you have your stage select, and regardless of where your cursor's at, it brings up the stage menu when you hit confirm, right? That contains play.
Oh, okay. So I think I was visualizing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I think I was seeing that like you had your cursor on the stage.
Yeah. It doesn't matter where your cursor's at. It's going to bring up...
Is there going to be a cursor? Like a cursor that can...
I say cursor. I mean, you move your character on the map to the node for that particular... whatever stage you want.
So, I have a question about how the character moves on the map screen.
Sure.
Do you just like kind of nudge the stick in a direction and then the character like automatically follows a path to the next?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you're not like guiding the character with the
right.
thumbstick.
Yeah, it's not like full-on movement.
Okay, so wherever the character is essentially like where the cursor is.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All
so
right.
then you can...
See, I would just think you would press O, for example, or circle if this was PlayStation,
right.
and a prompt would come up saying return to title screen, and then you'd hit X, yes, O, no.
Yeah, I could have a separate thing for that. I think it was trying to minimize my workload.
Sure.
By just putting it...
I just feel like that's what I see in games.
Right. I haven't touched the map screen, so I probably have to go back and look at what the hell I even did.
Okay.
My point in all this is that the options will be available on the map screen, along with all these other options.
It's not bad to have options.
Right. So it's just accessing the same menu.
Okay.
That would be the options menu in the stage.
Okay, gotcha.
It's just going to instantiate the same object.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay, I understand. So rather than having to do like two different menus,
right,
you're just gonna have it use the same menu.
Yeah, it's just gonna instantiate the same object. Same with I might put it in the extras menu or on the main menu, on the actual title screen.
Okay. Have you I assume you've on paper at least mapped out flow.
I have so menus. Many different versions of that flow chart at this point. It's insane, and I need to do it again. Okay. I'm in the process of doing that again.
Okay.
Not with that, but with the pause menu right now.
Gotcha.
And so, as far as, the pause menu, you bring it up, there's resume, options, quit the stage, and I think that's it.
Okay.
I was debating whether to have extras on there because you are unlocking
Is there a restart stage?
Oh yeah, that's on there. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, resume, restart, quit, which takes you back to the map.
That makes sense.
And then options.
Okay.
It's not in that order, but anyways.
Okay.
The options is where the work is really at.
Okay.
That's what I'm kind of putting together now.
All right.
I'm kind of treating it all as one project, which might not be the best idea, but it's so tied together that I'm just...
This is where you gotta have sliders and things like that, right?
Yeah, so each option within the options menu is gonna have a different format depending on what it is. Something that has 3 settings is gonna need, I want to display the 3 settings, rather than having any kind of a list or something like that.
Okay.
Whereas languages might have more of a list. So, and each option needs an ID so that it can, instantiate the right cursor and stuff.
Okay.
Which are additional instantiations off of, so there's a manager script and all these different child game object prefabs that are all the cursors, and some of them are just data. For sound volume, music volume, voice volume. I am putting frame rate in there, but I'm doing so to where it can easily be deleted if I decide no.
Yeah.
And
I would imagine on console you want to target 60.
Yeah, so the game has been locked to 60, and they've talked about why in the past.
There's a whole plethora of reasons.
Yeah. So with rebuilding the scripts, if I can get everything running on a time-based logic structure, there is no reason to lock it to 60 anymore, except maybe the pause menu where the time scale is set to 0.
Right.
I might have to revert it to or lock it to something.
Right. Well, from a gameplay's perspective, if you can get rock solid 60 the whole way through, that makes players generally happy.
Yeah.
Rather than have something varying from
Yeah, this wouldn't... I know that the game, after everything is modularized like this, will run on PS5 at 120, no problem.
Okay.
Performance-wise.
Yeah, it shouldn't have a problem.
So if I can access that and make that available, I'd like to.
You'd make people happy.
Yeah. So that's why I would add that.
I see.
But that is also dependent on if I can get everything,
Right.
all the animations and everything not running on a frame-based structure. Otherwise, everything's going to be running twice as fast.
Right.
So that's where I'm at. But I wanted to open up for this Seraphim update segment. I wanted to open up a discussion with you, basically, and what you think I should be, how I should be, like, what options should be available, and in what order, what's important, what's not important, because now is kind of the time to do that for me.
This isn't like a definitive. So do you see the options menu as having like different tabs, or you just see the game options being all one screen, everything on one screen?
My vision is a scrolling thing.
So almost like sections.
Right.
So it's like the first section will be about like gameplay settings.
Right.
Okay, then the next section would be like
volume,
music and volume or something like
and
that.
And then maybe language.
And then a language option, yeah.
And so another thing, but yeah, it would be like that. But one more thing to consider before, like, I hear your kind of take is in the stages, when you hit the art fragments, which are called art frags in the game, there are these random items that they all look the same. It has a question mark on it and it looks like a broken piece of artwork. You hit it and it gives you a random art fragment, which is a 1 of 10 piece of a production art unlockable in the extras menu. And this is all something that's working.
Right. This, I remember, is inspired by the Street Pass artwork.
I think maybe, yeah.
That's how far back this goes. The Street Pass Me Plaza artwork puzzle pieces.
That's right. Yeah. Except this looks more like it's fragmented.
It's not like a puzzle.
Panels. Yeah. Do you think that I should have the extras menu, like a version of the extras menu that can come up on the fly?
Mid-stage?
Mid-stage, yeah. No?
I think you should eliminate anything from like the mid-stage menu that isn't exit, restart, or options. I mean, I don't know how viable it should. Like, do they really need to access the language options in the middle of playing a stage? I could see like volume and stuff.
No, but I'm not doing any extra work to make it really available.
Okay.
Also, I just think if I could keep the options menu uniform in all versions of it, that's better. That's easier.
Okay. So then my question would be is if they go into the extras menu, when they exit the extras menu, are they right back where they were in the stage?
Right. They come back to the pause menu.
But like exactly, and then they can resume the game exactly where they were?
It doesn't even change the scene. It would come up as like a window.
Okay.
With the same...
I guess then, yeah, if it doesn't... Because some players might want to go, oh, what art fragment did I unlock?
Exactly. And when you do get a new one, the word new gets all like animated and stuff.
Okay, so you can get one that you already have?
Yeah.
That's annoying.
Yeah, well, it's going to turn into... So the in-game currency is trumpets.
Right.
And it'll turn into a trumpet. So you'll get rewarded for some way.
But then when you're only missing like 2 or 3 pieces...
Yeah, so there's another mechanic in the extras menu where you can bet trumpets to roll a new one, and you can
this is so
bet more.
Inspired
I don't care. I don't care.
No, I love it.
I don't care.
Love it.
I don't care
the inspiration.
What anyone thinks. This is how I'm making it.
I think people are going to enjoy that. I think people will know what you were like referencing when you included that in your game.
Right. So, so that's the actual full picture of how the art fragments work. So if you are missing 2, you can bet like all your trumpets
to get that rate up really high.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
So but because of the way the UI advertises that you got a new piece with a big red lettered word new, like pulsating over the thing for like half a second. I'm thinking that like I want to get those dopamines rushing, so if I have the extras menu available in the pause menu, you could easily quickly check and see what piece you got.
Okay.
And then exit right back out to the pause menu and then resume. But do you think this is something worthwhile? Because it would be extra work.
I think if it's there, it's appreciated. But if it's not there, I don't think anyone is complaining about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you're fine if you don't do it.
Mm-hmm. I'm not creating anything new.
Right.
You know, I'm using stuff that I'm already going to have.
Right.
I'm just making it of...
Well, I mean, then let me put it this way. Is it an important use of your time to do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, if that's something that's going to take you days of work to do, then it's not worth it.
Well, again...
If it's something you can implement in 30 minutes, then sure, do it.
It's something that I'm calling from somewhere else.
Right.
And should be able to fairly easily call.
Should be able to fairly easily. These are all qualifiers that you know are likely not to be true.
Right. It would need some modifications just so it can be like a floating window. Because where it does appear off the main menu, it's a whole scene.
Oh, okay.
So when I build... That hasn't been built yet. Oh, okay. So I could build it to be like interchangeable that way to where I can kind of just paste it over here too.
Right. I mean, as long as by pasting it doesn't like look cheap or something.
No.
Because I know you like to do things impressively.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like with the presentation, you know?
Yeah.
So like I feel like if that's going to
if I feel something looks
your
amateur, like if something looks amateur, like a college kid did it, that's the thing I go to in my head.
See, I know you get hung up on that, dude.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's part of the reason it takes you so long. Because you want everything to be perfect.
Right. Have particle effects on every...
Man, you just gotta ship it.
Yeah, I know.
Ship it.
I know. It's extremely difficult. And it makes you appreciate directors in some suits and stuff.
Right.
Because if I had that in my life, it would have been shipped already.
Right.
But
you have committed to rebuilding the game.
Yeah, well, modularizing.
Well, I know, but like, there's a lot
If I was rebuilding the game, I'd be re-rigging models and doing all...
Well, okay, you have the models, you have the textures.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of new programming to be done.
The animation is really the big... As far as art goes, animation is...
Okay, yeah. I know you have some grand animations in store for the game.
Yeah.
Some keyframe hand animations.
Yeah. Like... Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of that still hasn't been done.
Yeah. After the modularization and the remaining 2 player abilities, that's it. And then everything else is basically going to be animating.
And that's time. I mean, like, you'll do 2 seconds of animation.
Mm-hmm.
How much time is that? Like, an
that's a good... It depends what's going on in those 2 seconds, but...
Sure. Let's just say let's say it's
if it's really crazy, it could take me 6 hours.
To do 2 seconds. Yeah.
If it's like a lot of stuff. Like, if I have to touch 5,000 different objects in those 2 seconds,
So, I mean, when you're talking about a 30-second cutscene... Yeah. Or however long.
Yeah,
how long are these animated sequences?
They vary. The opening is the biggest. So
that one you're progressed through.
Ben's semi done with for a couple of years.
And then you have how many more?
There's the opening, which is also like the World 1 cinematic.
How long is that?
It's like 1:20. Yeah.
Oh man.
And this is all like already keyframed out to the...
Right. This is the thing we got to remember. Players see once.
Yeah. Unless you do New Game Plus, yeah.
Right.
So that's... Yeah. But this is, again, animated.
Right.
In like keyframe.
Right. Like, I understand that, and I understand how impressive it is, and I'm trying to convey to the listeners here that how much work goes into a minute-long animation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For when it's a cinematics team,
right? It's
not that big of a deal. But when you're the only programmer, the only cinematics,
so I mean,
specialist.
I just hope these other
Yeah.
things are shorter.
Everything else is less than half that length, I think.
Okay. That's still a significant chunk of time. And you have, what, a dozen?
No.
Half a dozen?
No. The World 1, World 2, World 3, World 4, and the ending. 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and there are intermittent stage animations. Those are like 4 seconds, and it's just the character and stuff.
So, I mean, that sounds, so it's like you're going to be done with the work, but then you're going to get this big pile of animation to do.
Yeah. So, what's going to happen, and here's how it's going to look. All this modularization stuff gets done.
Okay.
The remaining couple player or game mechanics, I'll just call them, get developed and put into the game. So now I have a full working machine.
Yes.
Like the state machine is done, enemies are spawning, all the items are done, all their functions are working, everything. Okay. So now I just need 24 stages. So now I am going to go through my level manager and throw in a bunch of waves, design that stuff out, and then go, set up the environment with all the, basically what I'm creating for the cinematic for that world doubles as the level kit for all 6 of its stages.
Right.
So I'll be moving those around, making all kinds of different structures out of them.
Okay.
Not really, that doesn't need to be crazy.
Right.
I could make stuff really detailed out of these objects.
Yeah, I feel like where players are going to spend the majority of their time is actually in the game.
Right.
So if you're going to spend 200 hours making something...
Yeah. Make it gameplay.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be critical. I've seen your animations. Yeah. I know how awesome they are.
Yeah.
But it's like, for example, like the power-up animations. Like, those are something the player's going to see a lot.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to put a lot of time into them, and they're awesome, and they're epic, and they're just so cool.
Yeah.
But, like, the animation, the 1.5-minute long animation that they're going to see one time.
Okay, that's an important one, though.
I'm not saying it's not.
Like, your opening to a game is like, that's what the most people are going to see.
Yes. Okay, of all the animations, the opening one is the most important.
That's why that one's getting...
Right. I'm just saying, I don't want to see you get hung up on 2 years of animation work.
Right.
Because in reality, for you to get 30 hours of work done on Seraphim, like, that's you probably devoting as much of your free time as you possibly can in a single week to the game.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily sound like a lot, but, you have a whole life to live outside of developing the game.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, I just worry that all that animation work takes like a whole entire year to do.
Right.
And again, I'm not trying to like deter you from your vision.
Yeah. No, I get it. You're not wrong.
But I think if you want to do something, if you're going to spend a lot of time on something, spend it in a place where the players are going to appreciate it and notice it and see it all the time
inside the levels.
Yeah.
I guess my point I'm making here is that when it comes to designing the levels, like all 24 stages, I have a formula and a bunch of tools I'll have made to streamline that pretty well.
Right. Now you're talking about like the enemy waves and things like that, or are you talking about like the visual identity of the stage?
I'm talking about the environment.
Oh, okay.
There will be environment. Like normal environment outside of the power-ups.
See, I always kind of thought like each world within the game has a set of stages. Right.
And they kind of have a different mechanical mental theme to them.
Right. Yeah. So I kind of thought like each of the world would just kind of have its own universal stage, or like all 10 stages in that world would all have the same environment throughout all of them. Not necessarily every single stage would get a unique environment.
And so far, that's up to the last transformation of Seraphim. That was the case, and that environment was a simple skybox, or a 2-layered skybox.
Okay.
That's still gonna be the skybox, but I'm gonna have them moving through environments now.
All right. Yeah. I remember you once told me that like the character would like actually
it'll go through rounds basically within the stage.
Interesting.
Where he actually transitions location. Right. Yeah.
I can't help but get excited, like, hearing about this.
Yeah, I know. It's exciting to talk about, and I think early on that's why I talked so much talk.
Right.
And now I kind of burned out everyone's, like, faith in the project. Maybe not yours, but in general.
I mean, I won't lie. There was a time where it did feel... I don't know, like, where I was probably burnt out on it. And not even so much because of you, but just because... Like, at the time, I was an idiot. And I didn't... Because I couldn't see it, I didn't, like, know that anything was happening.
Yeah. So,
like, I would see the game, and you'd be like, I've done all this stuff. And then I play it, and I'm like, well, what seems changed? The same to me, you know? What changed? And you're like, well, it's not something you can see. It's a bunch of under-the-hood stuff. Since, I mean, because, again, we're going back a decade.
Yeah.
I have a total different understanding of how
it'll be 9 years in May.
2014?
I think so.
This is 2024.
Shoot.
It'll be 10 years.
All right, I'm wishful thinking.
Yeah. So
No, it was 2015.
That's the year we went to E3. So you already had the game the previous year.
It's going to be 10 years.
Yeah, I was still working at Target when you were sending me builds of it. Yeah, and I quit Target early in 2014.
Dang. So I'm already hitting the limit. Like 10 years was like my final limit.
All right, well now we're shooting for 12, okay?
All right. Anyways, so that's what I'm working on specifically is getting the options, and there's some design work happening there.
Okay.
I'm referencing my old game design document,
right?
Because I did lay all that out, but
okay, I have a crazy pitch.
Yeah.
Is you have an old build of Seraphim with all the power-ups functioning and working.
Not all, but
yeah. Well, yeah, the ones that were previously developed aside from the final two.
I think the last working build was actually like a speed test. Like gameplay speed
But you
test.
have a build.
Yeah.
I presume that's not a broken, shattered mess.
Yeah, somewhere, yeah.
Okay. This is just a really dumb idea. And I know what you're going to tell me. I'm doing all this work for the future of my games.
Right.
But is there no way you could just go back to that version, implement the power-ups, create the stages, throw in your animations, and ship it? Like, rather than go through with this from the ground up, you know, like...
modularization stuff?
Yeah. And I know that might have long-term effects.
Well, the problem with doing that is I don't know how, like, just doing that is a lot of work. Like, just going back and getting that even, like, testable is a lot of work.
Okay.
And then I throw it on the dev kit and then find out that, like, it's not loading. It's not loading all this crap, you know, that I was, you know.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, like, I've played, you know, the PS Mobile version of Seraphim.
Right.
On PlayStation Vita.
Yeah, right.
And that, like...
That was very bare bones.
I know it was. But I'm just thinking, you have that base with that version of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Develop the last two power-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out a way to do, like, stage select.
Yeah.
You know, world map.
Well, that one uses, like... all old shaders.
Right.
You know, there's a lot.
I mean, like, but that wouldn't... Implementing the new shaders wouldn't necessarily involve, like, shattering the game, would it?
No, but, like, there's new types of enemies that would have to go in. Okay. There's, like, they have particle effects that they didn't
So I guess my question, the answer is really no. You don't have a recent enough, like, put together build that has everything you developed intact before.
I might. It's just the risk of trying to do that.
Yeah, see, and then this might be like a stupid idea. You know, like, I don't want to derail the good stuff you're doing right now.
Right.
But I'm just thinking if you could roll back to that. Because, I mean, the next game after Seraphim is presumably not going to be Seraphim 2.
No.
I know you have something else you really want to do.
Yeah.
So I would think that would almost be more of like you wouldn't necessarily be using a bunch of stuff from Seraphim directly.
Some like menu scripts and stuff like that.
Okay, you could make use of,
right.
Yeah.
I could probably like get away with recycling a lot of the like flow of scene transitions and menus involved with that. And
I
stuff.
imagine the games you want to, at least the immediate few games you'd like to work on are going to share some sort of visual identity.
Yeah, I think just being made by me will cause that to happen too.
And so like, like you see, like a new IP is really hard to do, but then once you have that identity, once you have those assets that you've built,
right,
you can reuse and recycle. And that's what happens in modern video games.
Yeah.
That's why like Assassin's Creed used to get a new Assassin's Creed game every single year.
Oh yeah. There are entire games made out of nothing but old assets.
Right.
So
but like your visual identity demands that you make the assets effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone else that I could truly be like, okay, you do what I'm doing, and they would produce something that looks like it. But anyways, so that's where I'm at. We'll talk more later about like the options menu.
Another really good discussion, I believe.
Yeah.
The last time we had an update, I said that was maybe our best update.
Yeah.
Our biggest update, but I don't know. This one might have topped that.
I think just giving you like some diary entry is probably not the best product with these.
Yeah, I think these discussions work a little better. I mean, I don't mind like the entry,
right?
And then like it leading to a discussion, but I think it's just more natural when you're just talking about it rather than reading it. Okay, so we're gonna jump into some news now. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, we've got 2 stories. I know this is probably the longest we've ever gone for an intro before we jump into the stories, but this particular news story was sent to me by a friend of the show, Geocode7.
Yeah. Sam.
He sent me this article about Vladimir Putin wanting Russia to make its own games console. So in 2021, after Russia invaded Ukraine, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo pulled out of the region and no longer officially ship their products, games, consoles to the country. Unofficial means of obtaining games and consoles still exist, but it's generally been hard for gamers in Russia to play games in, their country.
Right.
So last week, during a socioeconomic meeting with the Russian government, Vladimir Putin ordered his government to look into the creation of both a home and portable game console, along with a custom OS operating system for the hardware. Prime Minister
Mikhail Mishustin.
Thank you. Has a deadline of June 15th to consider Putin's proposal. I just want to say I would not want to be Mikhail if on June 15th and he hasn't thoroughly...
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, he might fall out of a window or something. So I guess when they say he has a deadline, I think it's like they have to consider a way to determine if that's really viable.
Yeah, I think he just wants an answer by that date.
Right, like is this something we can feasibly do?
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily like a
make
it by then or...
Right. Yeah, I want a console on my desk.
So a Russian newspaper, I'm going to let Rick pronounce this one.
Kommersant? I don't speak Russian. I know German pretty well.
Well, you pronounced Mikhail Mishustin.
Well, that's just... I know it's Putin. I know it's pronounced Putin, so it's got to be Mishustin.
Okay. All right, Mishustin, sure. So Kommersant put out an article which implies that Russian tech company VK would be the most likely company to produce a console for the Russian market. Though, after speaking with those in the tech industry, they note that it would likely take up to a decade to create a console from scratch if they started right now.
Yeah, that sounds... I could believe that.
I believe that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Like, if someone wanted to make a console and had, like, no experience doing it prior...
Right.
It would be an intensive process.
Right.
And then not only that, by the time you actually get to shipping that console, it's probably...
like a mainline style console.
Yeah.
Like...
I mean, there's a reason there's only 3 players in the console market.
Right.
Because it's not easy to join that market.
The barrier of entry is extreme.
Look at the Intellivision Amico for a recent case and failure.
I mean,
there's more reasons.
Yeah, it would have benefited them to realize that it takes 10 years.
Yeah, rather than trying to rush something to market. So even with a new console, Russia would then have to have an internal...
They'd have to have a whole developer ecosystem
within Russia.
Within their country, yeah.
Right, to support this new console.
Right.
Which I don't know that Russia has, like... I'm sure they have game developers.
Yeah. I mean, well, I was going to talk about it later, but I'll bring it up now.
Sure.
Russia has a footprint in the video game history, obviously.
With Tetris.
Tetris. Yeah. Conceived and developed in the Soviet Union.
Right.
They're not strangers to video games. They've had consoles in Russia previously. Now I'm gonna forget the name. I think it was not Tandyvision. There was another console that was around that time. Anyways, one of those old retro consoles was big in Russia.
Okay.
They have a gaming market. They have a gaming history.
They do. Yeah.
So they're not like other countries that I'll talk about later. They're not like completely unintroduced to video games.
Yeah.
As a society.
Right. No, yeah, they like games there and they want to play games.
And they like computer programming too, obviously.
Yep. So it'll almost be like they not only would they have a state created console,
not the first either.
Right, not the first. We'll get there. They would need like state-run developers effectively to support this console to make it, because it's not like Nintendo or other third-party publishers outside of Russia are going to be rushing to put their games on this console necessarily.
Right. I don't. Russia would be, if this goes through, I think they'd be foolish to not allow like developers outside the country to put their games on it.
Right.
Obviously, like there's a lot of people who don't want to have anything to do with that country, but there are other countries that are indifferent.
Sure.
And will,
they have their allies, I guess.
Right.
Get some North Korean games on there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are developers here that would still do business with VK, just independently.
So, they actually suspect that if this is something they wanted to expedite, they would probably partner with these Chinese manufacturers that are creating like mobile and like tabletop style PC consoles, and maybe give it some kind of special UI overlay, but it'd essentially just be a PC.
Right.
Yeah. Like something akin to like a Steam Deck or like the Asus ROG Ally or something like that.
So it's not the first time that's happened either.
Right.
So we're drawing too many parallels, so I'm just going to bring it up. Okay. So North Korea back in, I believe it was 2018.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, they announced that they were going to have a national console.
Yes.
The first North Korean video game console to hit the market. And they did it. They did release the Moron Bong. That is the name of the console. And I've seen pictures of it. I have a bunch of like literature from its release and screenshots and stuff. It looks like a cross between a Wii and like an Xbox Kinect type unit. The games are they look, from what I've seen, they all look like your typical like shovelware party games that you see on like the Wii and stuff like that.
It's running on Android, the Moron Bomb.
Right. And I know that North Korea turned to, again, Chinese. I don't know if they're pirate manufacturers.
My understanding is that the Moron Bong is actually just a reskinned Chinese product.
Yeah.
Beyond the shell around it is North Korea exclusive, I guess you could say.
Well, I think the software is too.
Okay, there might be some OS stuff that North Korea requested.
Right. I mean, games and stuff. Like, But, But my
understanding is it's basically preloaded with a bunch of like
emulator type stuff.
Yeah, and like ROMs and edited ROMs and things like that.
I don't think it is. I don't consider it like a straight Chinese pirate console like we see in like vending machines and stuff. Yeah. I think it is an actual original console with original games.
There might be some original games on it. Yeah.
But so this is probably the most. Well, it's definitely the most recent. So okay. Also, the Moron Bong is not the first state console either.
Okay.
Back in back in the 80s, when the Berlin Wall was still up and we had the GDR, the East Germany, there was a state console. That was the Schönberg Spiel 1. Yeah. And that was put out by the Soviet GDR Russian government in charge of East Germany at the time. There were other underground consoles that were illegal as well. There was a whole underground homebrew scene, which was illegal. Like, you couldn't do that.
Right. But you give people computers.
Yeah. Like, there were people who had a hankering for developing.
Yeah.
And they would go to, like, arcades and stuff. They didn't have arcades in East Germany, but they had fairs where they would bring in arcade cabinets.
Okay.
So these kids basically would go to these fairs, play the games, try to remember how they work.
Oh, wow.
And then go home and do it on their...
engineer them?
Yeah. So, yeah, crazy stories. I'm going to write about that someday.
Okay.
But anyways, also a state-sponsored console.
Okay.
I saw one on eBay going for like $2,000 complete in box.
I mean, that's probably a deal, a bargain.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know how many...
There's not enough people that know about it.
Right. I don't know how many of those are floating around right now either.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that was destroyed.
Right.
But North Korea's Moron Bong is the closest parallel we can really draw to something like this.
Yeah.
Now, I think Russia has a lot more, I don't know if we can call it experience, but much larger footprint.
Well, yeah, and as much as they are closed off, they're not that closed
they're
off.
They're not a hermit
like
country.
People can still exit and enter Russia.
Yes, you can go to North Korea too, but
that's a little more challenging.
Yeah, it is. But also Russia has a much bigger history with software development and stuff like that than North Korea. And I'd be excited to see Russia have their own console.
I mean, if they decide to actually go for it, I mean, like, I'm not trying to, like, cheer Russia on, but, like, I am curious to see what the heck they would make.
Right.
What the games would be like.
What the quality would be.
Yeah, I mean, they would have exclusive games, I presume.
Yeah.
I wonder if there would be a physical, like, disc or cartridge that these games would have. I mean... From a gaming historian kind of interest standpoint, this is exciting.
Oh yeah,
if it goes
as a collector,
if it goes to that way. Now, if it's just some PC or Android,
some reskinned stuff,
then it's
it'd still be interesting and collectible, but it wouldn't be as respectable.
Exciting,
I don't see. I mean, Russia was the first ones to space. Yeah. I don't see them making crap.
No.
Like, I think that they'll come up, if they do go through with this.
Right.
I think they would.
I mean, I think I think it'll be harder than maybe Putin seemingly thinks it is.
Well, he's asking this guy to consider how much of a challenge it'll be.
But yeah, if Putin's thinking I mean, we don't know what he's thinking in regards to a game. The fact that he's even thinking about a games console is interesting.
It is interesting, but I mean, he there is a vacuum there. There's a void there.
Right, and it's like, well,
and it's who
issue. Better to fill it than us?
Yeah. So, that's, I don't know. I'm looking to see where this goes.
All right, so it gets, let's say 10 years from now, the state-of-the-art Russian console comes out, physical media... but the country is now even more closed off for whatever reason. Sure. They've chosen to go that route.
Right.
Where they're becoming more like North Korea.
Well, I mean, making their own console is a step in that direction.
Right. I agree. Yeah. That tells me that they think it could be possible that
they just don't need the rest of the world.
Exactly.
What's your question?
What are you willing to do to get your hands on one? Assuming you have money to spend.
Yeah, okay, yeah, like there you go. If I have the resources, I would seek one out.
You would seek one out,
yeah.
Okay.
Same with the Moron Bong, although that I'd rather get by proxy.
Yeah.
I'd be more... I'd go see Moscow. Like, I would go visit.
Yeah, I think if the situation wasn't what it is right now, I would like to visit Russia someday, for sure. I mean, there's a huge history in that country and unique architecture and all kinds of awesome things to see in that country. It's huge.
Yeah.
Of course,
it's the biggest country geographically on Earth. I don't think Antarctica counts. What?
Isn't China bigger?
No.
No?
No.
No?
Not like as far as land.
Okay. Population-wise, China's much bigger.
Yeah. That way.
But yeah, most of Russia is just Arctic wasteland, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, I'd go. Okay. I'd go get one.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah, you'd want new in box.
Yeah.
On the shelf.
Yeah.
Okay. We're ready to move on to our final story.
Yeah. Let's
Sorry, guys. We know we went really long with the intro today. So yeah, just one more story to go, but it's one we had hinted at a couple weeks ago when there was a rumor that Gearbox, the developers of Borderlands, were looking to be sold by their parent company, Embracer.
Yes.
So Embracer has stopped embracing Gearbox officially.
Yeah.
And they have been sold to Take-Two Interactive. Take-Two is purchasing Gearbox for $460 million from Embracer Group. If you don't know who Take-Two is, you hear about, they have games that everyone knows for a fact, but I feel like Take-Two is not like, Take-Two doesn't put on the Take-Two press conference.
They're more like in the shadows publisher.
Yeah, I really feel that way.
Yeah.
But
they want you to see their product. They don't want you to see their
them.
name.
Yeah. So they're known for games like BioShock, Civilization, Max Payne, lots of sports titles, and probably one of the most recognizable video game brands of all time, Grand Theft Auto.
Yes.
And then they've also...
Do they own Rockstar?
They do.
Yeah, that's right.
They also, for years, have been publishing the Borderlands games in partnership with Gearbox.
Right.
So they've had a relationship with them, and out of all the buyers, this one probably makes the most sense.
Did they do that with Gearbox while Gearbox was owned by Embracer?
I don't know that Gearbox has released a game under Embracer yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's only been like 2 years.
They bought them 2 years ago and sold them. Okay.
So we have a couple quotes from Randy Pitchford, the founder and CEO of Gearbox, as well as Take-Two chairman and CEO Strauss Zeman. So first we're going to read Randy Pitchford's quote. So he says, joining forces with Take-Two Interactive and 2K will help Gearbox ascend to our next level. Take-Two and 2K have demonstrated repeatedly their commitment to our engine of generating creativity, happiness, and profit.
Yeah.
We set the bar for interactive entertainment and achieved remarkable results with groundbreaking record-setting games when we worked together at arm's length as partners. I'm incredibly excited about what we can accomplish now that we've fully aligned as one.
Classic nothing burger from Randy Pitchford.
But of course he has to talk about money.
Yeah. I mean, profit's important. I'd rather companies talk about money than lie to our face with some, talk of fair. Like commitment. Yeah.
And they talk about creativity, happiness, which I guess is the result that players get when they play their games.
Right.
And what they get, money. I guess, okay, this particular, it came from their press release regarding the merger.
Right, okay.
So it makes sense that they'd be talking basically talking to investors with this information here.
I mean, profit's not a secret to anyone.
No. Take-Two chairman and CEO Strauss Zeman said this: "Our acquisition of Gearbox is an exciting moment for Take-Two and will strengthen our industry-leading creative talent and portfolio of owned intellectual property, including the iconic Borderlands franchise. This combination enhances the financial profile of our existing projects with Gearbox and unlocks the opportunity for us to drive increased long-term growth by leveraging the full resources of Take-Two across all of Gearbox's exciting initiatives." Anything to glean from that, you think? I feel like they're both basically saying the same thing.
Yeah, they're both saying the same thing, which is a whole lot of nothing.
Well, I mean, what they're saying is that, like, hey, we've been partners in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, like, true. There's, but now, when we're, like, one unit, when we become married.
Right. Now, what they're not saying is that this is putting them at, much bigger risk, in a sense. Because,
right.
So
with this purchase, Take-Two now acquires all of Gearbox's portfolio of intellectual property.
Which is, that's a crazy situation.
Including ownership of Borderlands, Tiny Tina's Wonderland, Homeworld, Risk of Rain, Brothers in Arms, Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
As well as Gearbox's entire future pipeline.
I forgot Gearbox has Duke Nukem.
I know, right? Yeah, that's a legacy franchise.
So Gearbox is putting themselves at risk. Like, Take-Two will shut them down. They'll dissolve their
if
properties.
Gearbox doesn't put out.
Right.
I should say.
Out, yeah.
Put out quality titles that people want to play. Like, let's say Gearbox has 2 flops in a row.
Yeah.
Take-Two might be like,
Take-Two doesn't care how...
they own your IPs. If you can't make good games with them, then see ya.
Right.
We'll give the IP to someone else.
And not just see you, we'll bury your company. Gearbox will cease to exist.
Yeah.
And, Take-Two is not much different than EA in that regard. I think EA is still worse, but Take-Two will do the same thing.
Yeah.
And, they'll take all of these massive franchises, Borderlands, Duke Nukem, and just give them to someone else.
Yep.
And that's...
I don't know. So when you sell your company, you're giving them everything you created.
Yeah.
Right? This is what Randy Pitchford has done twice now.
So, yeah.
So he no longer... Well, he's in charge of Gearbox still. Yeah. And I'm sure he has autonomy.
He runs the personnel of Gearbox.
Right. And I'm sure he still has the autonomy to make decisions for whatever Gearbox is doing. Mm-hmm.
But he has bosses.
He has bosses that he has to please.
Right.
And his head could roll at any moment.
Yeah.
Especially, you see a lot with mergers and acquisitions. They keep around the CEO or the founder for a couple years. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, we don't really need you anymore.
Right.
You've had your little transitional period for morale.
But it's bad PR, and it doesn't look good if they just axe him right after the merger.
Exactly. It's bad for morale. At the studio, if you immediately get acquired and then they axe your CEO.
Yeah.
That's not good.
And founder.
Yeah. There's a lot to say about Randy Pitchford.
Yeah, he's a character. I have a lot to say about him. But
we don't have time.
I know.
But he's been with the company the whole dang time.
I respect that he founded Gearbox and had this company, just like, Foldy Way started Way Forward, or any of those other, ones that started out and have survived.
Stuck through.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason for the sellouts, I have to imagine it was because Gearbox was in a place where he thought, maybe we can't survive on our own anymore.
Right.
And we need this parent company.
Right.
And that does happen. And if the alternative was Gearbox goes under, then I guess he made the right choice.
That's the only situation where I see it making sense.
Yeah.
Or you put your company in a hiatus and find a way to revive it yourself.
Right. So in the press release, there's one other tidbit I think worth mentioning. Gearbox said that they currently have 6 games in various stages of development. 5 of them being sequels and 1 new intellectual property. They confirmed that 2 of the titles are new games in the Borderlands and Homeworld franchises. Now, knowing that they only have about 6 IPs that are like really associated with Gearbox heavily, we have to imagine that 6 of those games are probably sequels to most of those games.
Right.
I mean, I could see them having 2 Borderlands projects in development at the same time.
Yeah.
Borderlands, their movie is coming out very soon.
That's true, yeah.
At WonderCon, they actually had a little booth, the Lionsgate, their distributor.
Oh.
And they had people dressed up as the
Borderlands characters?
Yeah, like the weird, like, creepy nomad looking Mad Max looking guys. Yeah. Like the people you just shoot a lot, I'm sure, in the game. Handing out posters.
The scavengers.
The scavengers.
I forget
they look like scavengers. Yeah. Anyways, they were giving out posters for the Borderlands movie. I have an extra if you want one, by the way.
Oh, sweet. Thanks.
So lot to look forward to from Gearbox.
I mean, it's scary. I don't want Gearbox to go under.
I mean, I think they're safer with Take-Two than they were with Embracer.
Really? Why do you think that?
Because Embracer, I don't know. They've been like closing studios and trying to sell off as much as they can.
That's true. Yeah, they're in like divestment mode right now.
Yeah. Whereas Take-Two, they have multiple reliable, heavy, especially their sports titles, because those are essentially live service games now. Then they generate so much income.
Yeah.
And then obviously Grand Theft Auto supposed to be launching, I think 2025. That's going to be a juggernaut.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Grand Theft Auto 5 still appears regularly in like the top 20 sellers every month.
Yeah.
In the United States.
Right.
And I'm sure around the world as well.
Right.
So that game continues to generate money, even though it's a single player game, but it does have a heavy online component that you can also access.
Right, microtransactions and stuff.
Yeah. I don't have anything profound to say, do you?
Nope. End transmission.